What's good, y'all? Today we're going to be talking about shutter speed and how it works in photography. Also, look at this sky. So beautiful. Alright, so you could think of shutter speed like how fast or slow you want the shutter to close, or if you want like your photo to kind of be trail like, that's going to be slow, so that's going to be like a lower shutter speed. And if you want it to be like real sharp, it's going to be a fast shutter speed, is the simplest way. But if you want it kind of like a blur, then you'll slow it down, so you know, it'll be like needing a tripod or something, so you'll need it. Let me just show you what I mean.
Alright, so think of shutter speed as your eyelids. This is kind of the analogy that helped me remember. So the reason why I say think of shutter speed as your eyelids is because if you blink super fast or super slow, that's basically what the shutter is doing. So every time it closes, it's blocking out light, and every time it's opening, it's letting light in. It's kind of how I think of like, oh, eyelids, because if I close my eyes, obviously it's dark. And if I open my eyes, I can see things. That's pretty much what the shutter is doing. So the higher you have the shutter speed up, the sharper your image is going to be. And then the opposite, the slower your shutter speed is, like 30 seconds, 10 seconds, 15 seconds, things like that, the slower and the blurrier and out of focus things are going to be for your shutter. So say I'm trying to take a picture, right, and I'm waving my hand and I have a high shutter speed. You're not gonna get as much motion blur because it's going to capture, you know, the speed of that motion quickly because it's at a high shutter speed. So it's gonna be sharp, in focus, and things like that. Now if I lower it to about 15 seconds and I wave my hand the same way, obviously you're going to get more blur because the shutter is going slower. So you're going to get, you know, this motion blur and kind of a trail, and the longer you have the shutter open for, the more light is coming in. So keep in mind, if you have a high shutter speed, you want things to be nice, sharp, and in focus, your image is going to be darker because it's letting less light in. So you need to add extra light, whether that's, you know, outside with no ND filter, or maybe you're using a soft box or something like that. You just need to add more light because your image is going to be darker. And then the opposite, if you're trying to make light trails, or you know, have blur in your photos, maybe somebody's running and you want to capture that motion and you have it open for 30 seconds, it's letting all that light in. So if you don't have like an ND filter or some shade or some form to block all that light out, you're just really going to get just a white blob, and you're going to be like, what the heck? So keep that in mind when you do want to take a picture with a high shutter. You're going to need to add some light, and if you want something with a low shutter, you're going to block some light. But now if you think of the eyelids, I promise you it helps, especially if you're just learning. You know, be like, okay, so if I'm closing my eyes, the shutter is closed, so it's not a lot of light. It may not make sense to you guys, but that's just how I learn. My brain is weird like that. And then, you know, the rules of photography and like shutter speed, ISO, aperture, all of that stuff for like video and photography is the same but slightly different. So, you know, if you want me to do a video on shutter speed and video, I'll definitely do that. But you know, rules can be broken. Sometimes you have to break the rules, because photography, it's a little bit different. Obviously, if you want, like I said, something in focus and sharp and all of that, high shutter speed. But if you do a high shutter speed in video, you know, it doesn't always look the same, because it definitely does make things a little more sharp, but it's not the cutest. So if you're doing some type of music video or something like that, then it's perfect. You can use different things. Like I said, sometimes you have to break the rules, but when you're first learning, you want to get familiar between video and photo, because it's like the same, but it's different at the same time.
Love is love. Love is love. Love is love. Love is love. Adios.